I have with me again, attorney and sports card collector, Paul Lesko. We have some breaking news, it's sort of breaking, it happened last day or two, with the Panini redemption case. And so I'm happy to have you back on and go over that. There's a lot to it.
No, thanks for having me back on. This is a topic that I am fascinated in, and anytime there's something big, I'm happy to talk about it.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate it again. And so for those who are either new to the hobby or haven't been in the hobby, redemption is pretty much an IOU. The card company sets up a checklist. Hey, we're going to have this set of cards, these 300 cards featuring these players. Some of these cards are going to have autographs. And basically, if they don't have the player or whoever's going to be on the card, if they haven't signed the autographs or the card specifically, they still need to send out the product. They're not going to delay the entire product just because they don't have a couple cards. So they put in redemption, basically IOU cards that say, hey, listen, you have opened this card, and all you have to do is send in this redemption to us. And as soon as we have the card, you'll have the card. We'll mail it out to you. You will get the card. It seems like a pretty simple process, but for the past 10 years plus, Panini and other companies have not been able to figure it out, whether it's lack of trying or possibly it's just part of their business model. But it's all come to this lawsuit now where Panini is being sued by some card collectors for their redemption practices, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, and it's redemptions are a necessary evil, unfortunately. It takes many months to put together products, and when you're putting together a product, you're putting together a checklist. And so it would, if you have so many numerous moving parts, where if you have 100 athletes in there, you have 100 autographs. I mean, you can imagine, you're sending the cards out or you're sending stickers for autographs out. And sometimes you're just not going to get all those in. So rather than hold up a product until everything comes in, you just release the product. And that's where the redemption issues are coming in, because athletes are, especially during season, very busy. So sometimes they don't sign what they need to sign. They don't do it timely, or sometimes they just don't do it at all. And that's what has given rise to that redemption lawsuit. It initially started with one Panini consumer who had some redemptions that weren't fulfilled, filed the lawsuit. He originally filed it in federal court. And after a long year in federal court, the judge there decided that he did not have jurisdiction for this case. So he dismissed the case, and it was later refiled in state court. It's been there for multiple years now. This has been a really long running case. And, as you say, the wheels of justice, they sometimes move very slowly. And so now there are two plaintiffs in the case. So far, Panini has done very well. They've won most of the motions that were filed, and the case as it was originally filed had claims for breach of contract, negligence, and also consumer fraud. Panini got everything dismissed except for the consumer fraud claims. And that was kind of shocking to me that the breach of contract claims were dismissed, because it seems to me that this is a great example of a contract. It's, hey, Panini, you have this IOU. I'm sending it in to you. Now give me what you owe me. But the judge there didn't agree and dismissed the breach of contract claim. So the plaintiffs, all they were left with was this consumer fraud claim. Panini was going for the early win, filed what's called a summary judgment motion, which basically says, hey, judge, there is no evidence to support their position. Because there's no evidence, they shouldn't get a trial. You should end the case right now. And that's the motion that was recently pending. And the judge actually denied Panini's motion. Now, this judge isn't the most verbose judge in the entire world. Normally, you like to see a multiple-page opinion with reasoning as to why she ruled in the way that she ruled. This just had one paragraph basically saying, hey, they filed this motion. It's denied in its entirety. So we don't know what the court's reasoning is, but you could probably read a little bit between the lines. The plaintiffs here argued that because this is a consumer fraud claim, Panini allegedly had knowledge that they were not going to be able to fulfill all of their redemptions from the start. They argued, and they had some data to show that potentially 14 to 25% of redemptions that were submitted went unfulfilled for some years. So the plaintiff's argument is, hey, Panini, if you had a redemption rate as low as, or a redemption unfulfilled rate as low as 25% or as high as 25%, it's hard to include IOUs for cards, knowing that you're only going to fulfill 3/4 of them, and the other 25%, well, you're just out of luck.
Yeah.
And consumers would, because it's a consumer fraud claim, you need to have reliance. The consumer needs to rely on something. And that's what's argued in this case. When you receive that IOU, a consumer relies upon it when they submit it to Panini saying, hey, I expect to get this card. And so, so it looks to us that the judge says, hey, I found some evidence that potentially there is reliance by the consumer on Panini's IOUs, and potentially Panini knew this was going on.
Yeah.
Now, this does not mean Panini's going to win. It just means the plaintiffs get a trial.
Yeah.
So
there is some, the judge said there is some evidence here a trial is necessary.
Correct. Yeah, there's at least some evidence. Judges only determine if there is evidence. They don't actually weigh the evidence. That's what the jury does. Yeah. So if there's just even a little bit of evidence to support the plaintiff's position, you normally get a trial after that. So the judge's order isn't a commentary on the strength of the case. It's not a commentary on who's going to win. It's just that the case will continue, and if it continues, we might have a trial.
Yeah, and that's where the evidence comes in, and either a judge or a jury will determine that. It makes, there's just so much involved with this. So you mentioned that basically Panini knows from their own stats that on average up to 25% of the cards are never redeemed. Like they never send them, of the redemptions that are sent in, they never send them out. Maybe they should include in their card, hey, here's your IOU. There's a 75% chance that we'll fill this.
Exactly. And had they done that, there would be no claim, because most consumer fraud claims just arise out of the company knows more than the consumer does, and the consumer's relying on something that should be freely available and is not, or they're relying on a misrepresentation. Here, the plaintiffs are arguing that the IOU is a misrepresentation. Had the IOU said, had the IOU just been truthful and said, hey, we're sorry, this athlete just didn't get us the stuff back. And, we've got a 75%, we got better than a 75% success rate. We're going to try and get it to you. But if we don't, we have a methodology of sending you something that we think is equivalent to it. Had the card said that, there would be no lawsuit. But
it says you've received this card. You are pretty much entitled to the card. And that's why people buy boxes. And that's one of the things about buying not junk wax, but that's one of the things about buying sealed wax products, especially older wax products, is you don't know, even if there are redemptions in there, when it comes to it, the redemptions have a time frame. They give us, the consumer, they say, hey, listen, you have to file this within the next year. And I know Panini for sure. I've gotten a few redemptions from them where it says, you have to file this within a year. You go on their website. They tell you, hey, we will have a determination in 90 to 120 days. So they give themselves 4 months to figure out whether or not they're going to address it. If you've been on the Panini website anytime in the past 3 or 4 years, or possibly going back longer, it's very difficult to actually get an answer on the website. They had a phone number. I once called them 10 times in a row. They don't have a voicemail box or anything. You call them at the end of what should be a voicemail. When it stops ringing, they tell you we're busy and to call back another time. And so that's what you get. That is Panini's customer service. And so I think that might come into this case if the plaintiffs can prove not only are they sending out IOUs, but they have no customer service. They have no they at least have not put a lot into actually redeeming these cards.
Yeah, no, and that's part of the reason I stopped buying sealed wax from Panini. It was, I believe I submitted a redemption from 2011 Elite Extra Edition for baseball way back when. And it just took forever, and they didn't say I was going to get the card I wanted, and they offered me a replacement, and it was such a disappointing replacement. I said, keep it. I'm done with you guys. Yeah. And I wish I kept all those emails. I mean, it was so long ago. That was like an old email address ago that I don't even know the password for.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's,
all that will come into evidence.
yeah.
Was Panini actually conducting proper business as they did this? And
And
what it leads to is, so right now, the lawsuit it's filed on behalf of two individuals. The next step is to determine, is this going to be a class action or not? Uh, Only a judge can decide if a case is going to be a class action. So that's where they're arguing right now. The plaintiffs it's been fully briefed. It's in the judge's hands. The judge will probably have a hearing on it. And that's a really big motion for Panini, because if Panini can get the class action certification denied, then it's fighting against two people for 7 redemptions. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. And sure, maybe some other people might want to file a lawsuit after that, but it's certainly not every single person, potentially every single person who had a redemption prior to 2019. And that's part of also what the class certification process is to determine, what is the class? Is it everybody who's ever submitted a redemption from Panini? Is it only certain years? There's a potential that this case is only about redemptions from 2012 to 2015, depending on how the judge carves up the case. So it's going to be very interesting to see, is this case a class action? And if so, what is the class definition? The smaller it is, the better it is for Panini. If they can get it denied, then I think all those things will disappear rather quickly and quietly. But we're in for a very interesting next few months.
Yeah, because so if it is class action, then it opens up a whole other box there for them. But if it's not, how many other people are going to file a lawsuit? How many other people are going to put in the time and the money to do what these individuals have done?
Yeah, it won't be many. I mean, maybe some high value cards, but certainly not the cards that are at issue in this case. I don't remember the exact values, but I don't think there's anything above $100 in value for these cards.
Oh, really?
These are really low dollar value cards. So you figure that's what most redemptions are. Most redemptions aren't worth very much. So yeah, if Panini wins this motion, it'll be sitting well, even though it has a chance of losing at trial. If they lose for $13, I mean, who really cares?
Yeah, exactly. Small potatoes, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. So,
I should also say the plaintiffs are asking for their attorney's fees, though, which does make it different, because in an instance where if Panini makes the attorneys fight really hard for it, they spend hundreds of hours and they win a $13 judgment. If they also win their attorney's fees, that could be something that could be big against Panini. But it's one thing to win a case. It's another thing to then win attorney's fees also. It's a real upward slope for the plaintiffs in that case.
for sure. So yeah, so it could be a big factor there. What about so you mentioned these redemptions are only a couple $100 in value. We hear it all the time. If you're lucky to get a redemption card. Now, for some, they never really seem to have any issues getting. Like I purchased when I heard there was a lawsuit a couple of years ago, or a potential lawsuit. I bought a bunch of redemption cards because in the back of my head I thought, hey, listen, if I have 10 redemption cards in there, and even if it's just some random player, if it's part of a class action lawsuit, maybe I can get some points or something. Maybe I can leverage that. And again, pre-law, so I know just enough to get me in trouble. But I figured, hey, if I have a bunch of Panini, redemptions that aren't filled, I might be able to be a part of that and get some money out of that. That might be worth more than the card. So I bought a bunch of Sean Murphy, who is a catcher for the Athletics in Oakland. His biggest play that he's known for is that a pitch hit him in the butt, and that's his biggest play that he's known for. They had no problem filling out, or redeeming and getting those signed and everything. It seems the big cards, at least that we hear about, there's a lot of redemption cards. If you are even lucky to get a redemption or a fulfillment of your redemption, a lot of them are substituted for other cards that, like you mentioned, don't really have any value. Could that also play into it, where it's like, not only are you not redeeming, up to 25% of the cards, but even the ones that you are redeeming, you're giving out random cards that may not even have any value for that.
Yeah, and that is actually part of the lawsuit, because they're alleging that when it comes to the replacement cards, that Panini's valuation process just is not reasonable. And according to what the pleadings state in the case, it's that Panini has not been able to even explain what their replacement value is. And I don't remember the exact language, but Panini's language is something along the lines that if you submit this redemption, you agree to replacement cards, and the value determination is at our sole discretion.
Full discretion.
It's something pretty draconian. So that's one of the things that's at issue too. It's the fact that, okay, we know you're not going to, fulfill 12 to 25%. Well, if you do that, you have to give appropriate compensation for that. And when you have a process that's at your sole discretion with, according to Panini's filings, they're using Beckett's publications for their monthly publication for valuation, not even eBay or anything current. They're allegedly using, the Beckett. They're saying that's not good enough. So both of those could be at issue there too. So if you have any redemptions that were replaced, depending on the class definition, you may still be involved in the case. But if they're all fulfilled, you're probably not part of the case at all.
Gotcha. So so there's a lot. It seems like there's a lot of legal stuff going on in the hobby all the time. So you're a very busy attorney. This is not only something you do for your living, but it's also your hobby. So you're always into it.
Yep. No, I always am. And it's actually what I collect too. I collect cards that are involved in lawsuits. So unfortunately, I'm cheering for chaos. I'm cheering for the lawsuits because it gives me more things to collect. And I don't have it with me, but one of the things I have in my collection is my 2011 Donruss Elite Extra Edition Redemption. I actually have the blue Redemption, and I have it in a one touch. So it's probably
the redemption card itself.
Yeah, the redemption card itself in a one touch. So, probably not many people. And it's for a while, it was a very prideful point in my collection, and I should bring it back out and put it behind me so that I could show off because it's current.
Yeah. And that's one, because we talked about this before. You have, you bought a CD Lamb card. Do you have the redemption card as well? Or did you just get the CD Lamb card?
I actually do. Sorry to walk off camera and be all professional for you, but so
you got it. That's perfect. That's perfect.
So I've got the redemption right in the middle, and then I've got one of them is a redemption, the actual card that I bought off eBay, but then I believe this is the guy right here. That was actually the redemption that goes to the redemption card. So it's
nice. Very cool. No,
I try to be as current as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot going on, and we talked about it earlier off camera. The possible another Panini issue, and everyone knows Panini right now is at least in the midst of trying to sell to Fanatics. So is this a possible thing that word on the street, on the Twitter sphere was that they were going to announce the acquisition. Fanatics was going to announce the acquisition of Panini at the card summit and everything, but it never happened. Is this a big enough case? I mean, Fanatics is huge. Is this really a big enough case to say, for Fanatics to be like, we're going to wait until you have all this situated? Or do you think this is just kind of like something they would take on and handle afterwards?
If it could go both ways. The way that I see it is if you're trying to buy a company, you want to buy the company for as little as possible. Yep. And so if you are Fanatics, regardless of what you think of this lawsuit, oh man, you've got this huge class action pending against you. I mean, that's at least $100 million of your value could go here. So I can't offer you as much. So I don't know. I mean, this alleged, buyout has been imminent forever. I mean, I thought at the National, everybody who was in the know said, "Oh yeah, it's done. Don't worry about it." And we're 6 months later, and it's still potentially not even, might not even go forward. But I think I don't know if it's something that would actually hold up the buyout, but it would be something fun for Fanatics to hold over them. I mean, I think Fanatics got Topps on the cheap because they ended up getting the MLB license, snatching it from them, and I think that probably affected Topps' value and gave a better purchase price to Fanatics. It wouldn't shock me if they're trying the same thing here with Panini, and good for Fanatics. They're swallowing up the whole industry on a discount.
Yeah, absolutely, and that seems to be a like you said, good for them. It seems to be a Fanatics kind of game plan where they took the license, because I believe, if I remember correctly, Topps was at least in the works of going public. Topps was going to have an IPO, and as soon as that license got taken away from them, they ended that, and then they ended up selling. So I could easily see that being the case as well. So there's a lot going on. We also have, if we want to talk about it for a second here, we've talked about it. I've had a couple other people on the show to talk about Panini. This is about their redemptions, but we've also had them on to talk about is there a possibility of loaded boxes? Because it seems like certain people get a majority of the hits. It came out this morning that there might be on the Crown Royal boxes that Panini gives out. It's a basketball product. Or at least this specific one is that there may be a sequence of codes on a little hologram sticker on the box that if you know the right code, you can determine which boxes have the rare hits, the case hits, the kaboom cards. It seems to be another issue with Panini. Maybe not thinking, hey, how could the customer not benefit the best from this?
Yeah, no, and I could see why Panini would do it. It seems that you would need to, if somebody calls up and says my box was stolen, or somebody ripped into it and tore it apart, I want a replacement. If Panini knows what that code is, they could say, okay, actually we do know what was in there. We could do something there. But you're right, there is the possibility of I guess malfeasance in the fact that you could have breakers or somebody in the know just, okay, here's 50 of these boxes there. Just flip over, look at each one. Okay, I only want to buy these two.
Exactly.
It's the equivalent of weighing packs of cards. It's the modern equivalent of that.
Yeah, except a scale might be off a little bit. This one, for sure. Potentially, for sure. And not only that, but you would hold on to the good ones. Like someone with maybe a few less ethics than one would hope might hold on to those, but then still sell the other ones as if they did have the kaboom cards in it. So yeah, it's just a whole nother box to open up.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is, just like the Panini redemption case, which is a consumer fraud claim, there potentially is a consumer fraud claim with the boxes, and this wouldn't be against Panini, but it could be against a knowledgeable breaker. If a knowledgeable breaker has, say, 10 of these boxes and knows that 3 of them have hits, but the other 7 don't. But then they're offering on eBay, selling all these and saying, hey, each of these boxes has a potential of getting these hits when they know that 7 of them do not. That's the breaker there has knowledge that 7 don't. But the consumers are still relying upon the statement, which is now potentially a misrepresentation when they're making the purchase. So, I think it'd be very difficult to prove, but you do have a potential, consumer fraud claim there.
Yeah, you would have to be able to prove that they had knowledge.
Yeah, they would have to have knowledge, and then I think the next step, which would be harder, is that even in boxes that have a non-hit serial number on it, do they sometimes have hits? Because if you have more of a chance of getting a hit due to these serial numbers, but there might still be hits in non-serial numbers, then I don't think you have a consumer fraud claim. It's just less of a chance.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, we have from what I've looked into this morning, it's a very small sample size, but I would say if you can open 3 boxes, these kaboom cards are case hits. So if you can open up 3 specific ones and each case or each box has the kaboom, I would say that's even though it's a small sample size, hitting a kaboom card, knowing like this box, which is a case hit, has it, that's pretty difficult. Well, you're like I said, you're always into this with the sports and the cards, or the sports cards and the law. So you know what you're talking about. We appreciate you coming on. You keep track of all this and everything with the trademarks and everything. You're at Paul Lesko on Twitter, right?
At Paul_Lesko. That's
_Lesko. Okay, cool. And I'll make sure to tag you when I post the video and everything. So you keep track of all this. How do you wake up? Is there a website you wake up and you type in Topps, you type in Panini? How do you keep track of all these lawsuits?
So I actually have an IP folder on my browser that I right click and open, and it's got, I think, 27 different links that are in there, because not everything is organized well for federal courts. All federal courts do actually go to one database, not state courts. They're a mess. So depending on what state courts you're looking at, some don't communicate well with others, and just because you found a lawsuit, you have to go to another website to find the pleadings. And then for filing trademarks, you have to go to a different website. For filing patents, you go to a different website. So it's my morning coffee. Before I start any day, I just right click on it. Most times nothing's happening, but sometimes before I have to actually start billing for the day, there's something fun, just throw together a little 20-minute, 10 tweet thread and, go from there.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate your time and everything. One last question before we go. There was a parody video that came out of an individual. He's a comedian. I believe he's former military, which kind of alleviates any issues. He was opening up a box, I believe, the Gulf War cards. And he opened it. He pulled an Osama bin Laden. He freaks out. He's as some of the breakers do. He freaks out. He goes, "Oh, rookie card, Osama bin Laden rookie," and it's clearly a parody video. He was notified. He was sent a message saying from a company. He used their logo, a breaker. He used their logo in the background. It's clearly a parody video. He's a comedian, former military. They sent him a notice saying, if you don't take this down, we're basically gonna sue you in fewer words. Have you seen anything about that?
That is something I have been watching. I am besides loving the law, I'm a huge proponent of free speech, especially of parody. I've done cases along those lines. So I always like it when, I always like lawsuits where you have a corporation or somebody overreaches. And especially here when it's clearly parody.
Yeah.
It'll be a very difficult case for those breakers to win, but I'm cheering for them to file it because I kind of like the chaos and I want them to learn the lesson the hard way.
Exactly. Well, we're definitely on that same wavelength there. As we talked about earlier, it's like, listen, I wanted to go to court. I want to hear all the proceedings and everything. I want to be in the courtroom when it happens. And so it sounds like we're on the same wavelength there. If we can get some drama out of sports cards, like why would there be drama? If we can get some drama out of that, it's going to be good.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, Paul, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and we'll have you back real soon.
Great. No, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.